بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen to the monthly Sharia webinar series, the latest monthly Sharia webinar series brought to you by Bank Rakyat, INCEIF University, the International Islamic University of Malaysia, as well as Derasat for Banking and Consulting in Islamic Finance. My name is Izzuddin. As usual, it is a pleasure to be your MC and moderator of sorts for this webinar series. And today we have a very exciting topic for you, and presented by a more than capable speaker and charismatic speaker as well. So today's topic will be on faith, finance and fintech, the Islamic finance in a digital world, presented by Associate Professor Dr. Ziyaad Mahomed, the Associate Professor here at INCEIF University, who is also the head of the program for our professional certificate in Islamic finance. So a little bit about Professor. Excuse me. Yes, Prof. Ziyaad, he is originally he is from South Africa. He stands as a distinguished Sharia advisor, extending his expertise to more than a dozen boards of Islamic financial institution and on an international level. Notably, he holds the esteemed position of the chairman of the HSBC Amanah Sharia Board of Malaysia, underscoring his influence in shaping the Sharia compliance within the financial sector. So without delving too much into his background, I think we will learn a bit more about him as he presents, inshallah. As usual, I would like to remind our attendees, please do submit your questions in the Q&A below. We will open the Q&A at the end of the session after his presentation, and after the questions from the panelists as well. So without any further ado, I would like to pass the virtual floor on to Prof. Ziyaad. تفضل مشكورا.
Jazakumullah khair, and thank you very much for the opportunity and the sponsor Bank Rakyat for this event and the monthly webinar. Yes, today we have an exciting topic: faith, finance and fintech. And for all those interested in technology and how it can help us to manage our finances, inshallah, this will be covering some of those aspects, inshallah. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Allahumma aftah alina bihikmatik wa anshur alina birahmatika ya dhal jalali wal ikram. And what I will do is share my slides to make it easier for us to follow the session. So faith, finance, and fintech, and perhaps a little background on the fact that at INCEIF University, we do cover faith, finance, and fintech as part of our curriculum, as part of our programs. And you may look at this from an Islamic finance perspective, or you could look at this from a development economics perspective, because fintech in itself has a huge role to play when it comes to social finance development. And social finance development is really focused on alleviation of poverty and the promotion of public benefit. So we will be touching on some of these subjects as we go along. To begin with, perhaps it's important to understand that the global financial landscape is actually in the midst of quite a profound and irreversible transformation. And if you see the little quote below, it's a creative destruction. It's rearranging itself around the consumer. And for Islamic finance in itself, it's a defining moment, because now the faith-based financing has an opportunity to reach people that it could not reach before due to lack of infrastructure or the lack of physical branches. Fintech and digital banking changes that dynamic completely, because the landscape is quite open. As we go along, we'll talk briefly about the reality, which is the explosive growth of the Islamic digital economy, and then a little bit about the revolution. What's the next frontier? And the next frontier cannot be discussed without views on artificial intelligence, data, and blockchain. And blockchain has been quite popular. It's been, there has been a lot of noise around blockchain, and perhaps the critics may say that blockchain has not really achieved its full potential. And I'm sure that you've been hearing about blockchain for the last 8 years to 10 years at least. In 2009, blockchain made its presence known through the famous Bitcoin. But we're going to understand how the use cases of blockchain have actually changed the dynamics of Islamic finance and finance in general. But ultimately, if this is not achieving a socio-economic empowerment, then we do need to look back at how we use our technology. So here we will be conducting a brief but essential examination of the ethical compass that's required to navigate this technological transformation, this new terrain. And it has to be grounded in foundational financial principles and principles of the Islamic faith for those that are seeking ethical solutions, for those that are seeking solutions that are faith aligned. So in the final part, we will talk about moral implications of the utilization of new technologies. And we will attempt to chart a course forward that will be ethically responsible, not just for profit, but for purpose, culminating in some perhaps inspirational vision for value-based digital finance for the future, inshallah. So without further ado, let's talk about the reality. In the reality, we say that there is a digital tsunami. A digital tsunami means that the global Islamic fintech market is no longer a niche. It's actually now a mainstream force. And here, it's a rapidly maturing industry. It's moving from a global overview of specific objectives to very nuanced approaches that are applying cultural dynamics, like those in Africa, West Africa, in Central Asia, and of course in Malaysia as well. And I'll share some experience as we go along, as I've had the privilege of guiding and interacting with fintech solutions throughout these regions, alhamdulillah. Now, market transaction volume, some stats, and that's not to confuse you with the numbers, but just to show you the growth. And the most telling indicator of an industry or a sector that's maturing is by measuring its scale of change or its difference. And if we look at 2021 to 2023-24, it's more than doubled in 2 years. That's a substantial increase. It's a rapid expansion. And it shows that there is a significant demand for adoption. And now what we can experience is market depth. So the first phase is, of course, that expansion phase. And then there is the growth and then maturity phase. And then, of course, there's the sunset. And they move in rapid unison today without any specific, barriers and phases of these changes as they go along. Looking forward at a 13.6% compound annual growth rate, this is quite phenomenal in terms of how much has been contributed to fintech. And we're expecting that the market will reach more than $300 billion by 2028. And this basically is an indicator of the Islamic fintech market in particular. Islamic fintech is growing faster than the global fintech industry. So to understand the 13.6% versus 11%, 13.6% is the growth of Islamic fintech, 11% is the growth of the global conventional fintech industry. So it's growing faster, as you can see. And who are driving this change and growth? Well, that's, the youth. The young digital native population, they're demanding ethically grounded financial services. And This is an important comparison within the Muslim population. Why? Because the global Muslim population is projected to constitute over 30% of the world's total by 2050. 30%. We are now at around 25%. And as this grows, that means the demand grows and the consumer base, of course, naturally is increasing. And this demographic is increasing in digitalization across Muslim majority countries and also a rising consumer demand for financial products in Muslim minority countries. Because in minority countries, the cost of developing Islamic finance is more significant than in majority countries. Why? Because regulation does not exist. The challenge of awareness and understanding has to be beginning from scratch. So the process is quite long and arduous. And therefore, coupling this Islamic financing solution with fintech simply gives it an exponential boost, and it tends to grow much quicker in Muslim minority countries. An excellent example is the United Kingdom, that is already in the top 5 when it comes to Islamic fintech nations on earth. And this is quite an amazing achievement, because we're only talking about 5% of the population being Muslim. So this is an interesting statistic. Now, who is actually leading in fintech? And when we look at the top 6 Islamic fintech markets only by size, and these are the latest statistics, Saudi Arabia far outstrips any other country. Iran is second, and Malaysia is third at $13 billion US. Then comes the UAE, Indonesia, and Turkey. The issue that we should look at here is what are the strategies in place in each of these countries, and how are they developing their Islamic fintech? Now, why this is important is because countries may reach saturation quite quickly, and then this leaderboard is expected to change over the next 5 years. However, the strategy of a country like Saudi Arabia, which has ascended to the top for the very first time, is a testament to the nation's significant investments and strategic approach to digital infrastructure and fintech. Here in particular, Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia is a very clear initiative that is looking at developing between 250 and 500 fintechs within the next 5 years. So this tells you that there is an extremely aggressive approach in Saudi Arabia to build their fintech space. The other countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, the UAE, and the UK, they are establishing themselves in Islamic fintech quite rapidly, and not only through offering, but also through hubs. So they have training hubs, coaching hubs, they have coaching programs that are built on mentoring, and Qatar is quite popular in the establishment of a digital hive. The UAE has done the same, but as you can see, the UK is the top non-OIC country or Muslim minority country that really can compete with the major countries in the establishment. So the community in the UK has done an exceptional amount of work in developing neobanks, in developing solutions for social finance, zakat, waqf, etc. So there's a lot happening in the UK. Now, in terms of market segments, what dominates is the financing and payments. These are amongst the largest sectors, and that stands to reason. The demand for financing is high generally, and the need for transactional solutions is also high. If you think about every time you walk into a coffee house and buy your morning cup of joe, or if you're looking at going to a restaurant or walking into a supermarket and buying groceries, then most countries now are using some form of fintech solution. And that's a payment gateway, basically flashing your phone, your QR code, or using your watch to pay through a digital payment is basically, lapping on to the amount of transactions that are taking place in fintech today. If you look at statistics and in terms of the number of Islamic fintech solutions available, well, around 478 to 500, that's the latest statistics for the last month, which is September. So close to 500. Now, bear in mind, there are several fintechs that are not mentioned here that may not have registered effectively or successfully, but there are tons of small little startups that are beginning with some solution that they are offering out in Indonesia, out in Kenya, in South Africa, in Nigeria. These countries are quite active when it comes to Islamic fintech. Just a few years ago, there were around 300 Islamic fintechs. They have now moved very quickly to almost 500. So significant growth. Some of the leading Islamic fintech solutions, as you can see, Abi in Pakistan, and this is a savings and investment fintech. So in this case, it offers personal finance quite easily through the solution. Algebra is very popular in the United Kingdom, offering deposits and financing. It's a challenger bank, and therefore, this is a bank that is, really, when it comes to the fintech horizon and the landscape, some of the best companies to watch. Alif Bank Tajikistan began as a bank. It's now in the digital arena and is spreading towards Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and the rest of Central Asia and offering microfinance solutions. Tajikistan is not a particularly wealthy country, but the need for financing, especially small ticket financing, is huge. That goes the same for another fintech called Iman that comes out of Uzbekistan. And Iman offers a halal funding solution. It offers deposits on Mudaraba and financing on Murabaha. It also offers BNPL or buy now, pay later using Musawama, which is the negotiated sale in quite innovative solutions. And this institution has been growing substantially over the last few years. Now, if we look at Malaysia in particular, we find that Bank Negara itself has laid the platform for the development of digital banking, and Malaysia has then leveraged off this to offer specifically three, or rather, let's talk about the five first, the five digital banks that have been licensed through Bank Negara Malaysia. Now, out of these, three are conventional, two are Islamic. And if we quickly scan through these banks, GX Bank is a Grab-led consortium, and every one of us, I'm sure, coming out of Malaysia or Southeast Asia would know about the Grab app. And many are using it for everything from groceries to document drop-offs and, of course, now financing and deposits. It saw 100,000 customers in its first 2 weeks. 100,000 customers in its first 2 weeks, 750,000 in under a year, and it hopes to reach 1 million soon. It's processed over 13 million transactions, and it has announced about 1.5 billion ringgits in investment over 5 years for this concept. Note that they are referring to as GX for all. So it's also using AI, and it's using AI to identify fraud, because as you can well imagine, I'm sure many of us have already been touched by that ominous, scam, and we may have seen it through a scam alert, or we may have experienced the scam ourselves and fallen for it. And it's not easy because they come wrapped up in very, very convincing packages today. So Grab or GX Bank is using AI to identify fraud, and so the other banks as well. Aon Bank is another, and I won't go through all of these banks, but Aon Bank is the first Islamic digital bank here. It's looking at profitability in 2025. It has a suite of Sharia compliance services, and it's been growing substantially since its launch. And compared to Aeon Bank, we have CAF Digital Bank. It's the second fully Islamic digital bank, and it officially opened just in August 8, 2025, so just almost over a month ago, after completing a successful pilot phase. This bank is backed by several institutions, CAF Investment Bank in particular, Qasam, Money Match, and Genexu, and it offers Sharia compliant products like savings accounts based on the Qard principle. Okay, the Qard principle is an interest-free loan, and it has this solution as well. Now, some of the other solutions, like Right Bank, are also using AI to power their bank, and they are using Ilmu, a large language model, for more interactive banking, so more real banking, and conversing with your bank digitally now is something that's even possible. But in order to protect the market, it's necessary to have safeguards. And when we look at what's taking place in terms of the number of transactions through Do It Now or cross-border expansion, then we do have a challenge when it comes to cyber security. We will talk about cyber security a little later, but as you can see, QR payments have substantially increased in the first half of 2025 alone. They have facilitated around 1 billion ringgits worth of transactions. And in order for this to continue on its growth trajectory, it needs to provide safe public-private infrastructure. Otherwise, the trust deficit will creep in, and then we will have a huge challenge on our hands. So the next frontier. Now let's look at part 2 of our discussion very quickly. The next wave of innovation, it's not just about automation. It's about a very clear integration. And how this will work is potentially looking at an initial phase, and that initial phase of fintech that was largely automated. The licensing that was issued by Bank Negara required that a digital bank was able to close its doors over the weekends and walk away and come back on the Mondays and have no one in the office over the weekend whilst the bank ran on its own. So that was just an excellent example of automation. You're basically digitizing the processes. You make them faster, you make them convenient, and you make them more cost efficient. But the next frontier is going to be defined by what we can term as augmentation. In augmentation, we're using AI to make financial processes smarter, more predictive, and radically more inclusive. AI will no longer be a futuristic concept. It will be a practical tool that we will be part of. AI will be used as the tech to facilitate our thinking, our requirements, and our needs. And we expect that this will be applied across the platforms. I will share some case studies with you shortly, but just for us to understand that the platform will obviously have to change. We'll be talking about Platform 2.0. We'll be talking about blockchain and Web 3.0. So these things will have to be in the next frontier, and they will be in the coming slides as well. So quickly, how does this work? And a good example is a use case where AI is used in an augmented reality scenario where it's inclusive and it provides predictive credit scoring. Now, how does it work? Well, it's an algorithm that analyzes our behavior. So because we are paying for our utilities, our mobile usage, our transaction history, all perhaps through our mobiles today, all of this is being recorded and can easily be analyzed. So an augmented reality situation is where an AI is tasked with analyzing our transactions. It determines how reliable we are and efficient we are. when we are making payments. So an example would be, I receive an electricity bill from Tenaga today, and it's due in 2 weeks, but I pay it today. And if I consistently do this, then the AI is helping me to build my credit score based on my behavior. So I seem to be a good payer. I pay immediately, beyond time, in fact, and I pay as soon as the bill has been issued and way before deadline. Now, it's an interesting aspect, and I often mention this in the lectures on Islamic fintech, that this concept comes out from apps that have been built out in South Korea on matching, dating apps. So matching people for marriage and dating is taking place based on behavior, and it's doing exactly the same thing. So in other words, it's matching those that have a particular behavior on when they pay their bills and how quickly they pay it, and whether they pay extra and they exercise caution. And it goes further, it looks at where you drink your coffee and how you drink it and whatever is noted on your bill. And then it looks for someone that it can match with you based on your behavior. So that same level of algorithm and behavioral analysis is being used here to determine your credit worthiness without you having to have collateral or a detailed credit check. Now, this builds access to the unbanked and the underserved. For those that don't have a credit history, the AI algorithm that does predictive credit scoring now gives you access into banking as well. But there is the negative, and the con is the AI now has access to information and your private information. So by unscrupulous governments or those with nefarious intentions, people or organizations can actually provide or use this information and actually, conduct identity theft and other more serious scams. So this is something to be wary of. Quickly, use case 2, Shariah Oracle or the Smart Mufti is where AI is being used to support scholars in the determination of Sharia compliance of products and services at banks. And here, the algorithm is trained to be able to identify aspects of non-compliance within contracts, within transactions, within the governance behavior, and it could scan through minutes if you allow it to, and do a whole lot of analysis and provide you with what's going on. Now, bear in mind that this will probably have to be done in local AIs. The AIs that we typically are aware of, like ChatGPTs and Copilots and Claude and Grok and those, will have to be sitting on an internal server as an LLM or a version of that to be trained and used, and this is because of confidentiality and private information. Another use case is the AI-powered robo-advisors, where instead of speaking to a human and asking for guidance on investment, an AI-powered robo-advisor would be able to provide you with ethical investing solutions. And based on your particular needs and requirements, the AI robo-advisor would be able to automatically screen the stocks, screen the funds, construct a diversified portfolio, and then actually purchase the stocks for you using an agentic platform as well. So this is now a very personalized Sharia compliant investment solution. And it even can offer you social finance solutions like identifying and calculating your zakat for the year. And then in fact, identifying valuable projects, worthy projects where you can contribute your zakat to. This is not the future. This is what's available already. And I've been involved in some piloting of this. So, we can expect this to be rolled out more broadly internationally, inshallah. So the next part, Platform 2.0. What is Platform 2.0? Well, if we want to offer all of these fancy solutions, we've got to have a very strong digital infrastructure. And here I'm not talking about the connections of mobile platforms. I'm talking about a software platform that can manage agentic AI, that can manage the privacy and security of data. And unfortunately, right now, a handful of countries host globally scaled consumer platforms. And what this means is it's just a handful of countries that control the world's privacy and data. In fact, the US-based platforms account for 90% of the global average monthly user base. And this is a huge risk, especially what we're seeing now from the political perspective coming out of the US and its erratic behavior. This has been creating a real risk, a concentration risk, and a risk that one may call digital colonialism. And I know these are huge words to think about, but if we do not democratize the platforms that are hosting these solutions, then we may be facing a serious threat and serious risk in the future and in the short-term future. So the strategic response should be that there should be a national strategy to move from being a user of foreign platforms to a builder of sovereign digital ecosystems. For example, Malaysia has the My Digital ID. That's a national initiative. It secures digital identity and it protects the sovereign and the citizen. And this is important if countries want to maintain their own, protection of their citizens. So in the next frontier, we said we're going to talk about blockchain and Web 3.0 very quickly, transforming remittances. Blockchain has already been used in pipelines for letters of credit. It has been used in the UK Treasury for supplier identification and payments. It's being used in South Africa, and it's been used for remittances. If it's effectively used, it can actually slash the cost of a remittance from 10% to as low as 2%. It's, platforms like Ligon, they have already applied the smart contract to facilitate the letter of credit and the trade financing so that the bank guarantees can be issued in minutes, not days. And blockchain-enabled sukuk have already presented themselves in the form of Blossom Finance in Indonesia, which was an experiment. Now in Russia, in Nigeria, looking at the digital sukuk and even CBDCs. CBDCs, it's a central bank digital currency. And here, the e-Naira in Nigeria is already a testament to the fact that it can operate. You've got the digital krona out in Sweden and other examples that are already being used and applying blockchain for their platforms. Now, we don't have too much time left, but faith, when you use faith to approach technology, how should it apply? Or how should we apply our screening? Well, first of all, bear in mind that technology itself is agnostic. That means that when we look at these, and we receive common queries that say, is blockchain halal? Or is a particular digital platform permissible or Sharia compliant? Well, we need to frame the question carefully. And it's not whether the tech is halal or not. The tech is agnostic. It's a-religious. It's how you use the knife. It can be used for buttering your toast, or it can be used for something harmful. And technology is in the same category. If technology is used for public benefit and preventing harm, then this is where we look at it as a positive. Now, the Sharia itself looks at judgment that is based on a full context of the situation. So for example, if you ask, are digital assets like Bitcoin permissible? Then the question would be, are these digital assets causing harm? Do they fall under clear ownership in the Sharia? Are they acceptable from a legal perspective? When we look at all of these matters holistically, then we can provide a ruling, not before that. So the point to make here is that it's not the technology that's the issue, but rather it's how we utilize the technology. The technology can be beneficial or destructive. And if it is causing harm, then we will apply a Sharia injunction where we will have to block that means where we see that it is actually used for causing destruction. Now, the moral compass, and now we move into the latter part of our discussion. How do we navigate the ethical landscape of Islamic finance using technology? And this is the final and perhaps most crucial part of the analysis, and the core theme here is naturally faith. Now, what I've done for you is simply outlined what the technology is. We've talked about AI credit scoring, and then what it promises to do and what the risk is. Now, if we look at AI credit scoring, and we've talked about that a little earlier, then we realize that if it's applied correctly, it promotes financial inclusion. It protects them from exploitative lenders, because previously they've been going to the village local lender who has been charging an enormous amount of interest. And if you don't pay, well, you're going to pay with your limbs. You're going to pay with your family. And this is a reality still in many parts of South America, Southeast Asia. So using this formal, safe method of financing through digital banks, you now are promoting financial inclusion. And ultimately, this aligns with the maqasid, or the objectives of the Sharia, which are around the preservation of wealth. But the danger here is that AI does have bias. And this is because as human beings, we've trained the AI, and this is known as an algorithmic bias. And because AI does things big, doesn't do things small, it can amplify something small, like identifying certain races as being more risky than others, and it can exponentially amplify that to some level of risk. And therefore, this perpetuation of the social inequalities that we have, of the unjust manner in which we deny financing to certain groups, this is a serious risk. As for buy now, pay later, and I've talked about this on numerous occasions, buy now, pay later has its advantages. It gives opportunity for consumers to be able to access financing for small ticket items. But the danger is it also provides easy access to financing to those that may not have financial literacy. So imagine accessing financing is just a tap away, when the reality is the person may be living far beyond his means. So this can encourage impulsive overconsumption, israf, and this may lead to a cycle of debt. So this is a huge risk. The last one, big data analytics. The positive here is when we use big data to analyze it at one go using AI. This is cutting down time, efficiency, identifying the issues. But the data that we are handling now is a form of trust, is a form of amana. And when banks are dealing with this huge data, they are also exposing their consumers to risk. And if they don't have adequate securities in place, then this can be a huge exposure for the clients. And of course, it will constitute a breach of that trust, a violation of privacy, of dignity, and it needs to be protected significantly. Digital assets, and just a very superficial glance at digital assets. The Securities Commission of Malaysia has taken a proactive stance in digital assets in Malaysia and has permitted certain types of digital assets. And here, in addition, we must be aware that generally Bitcoin and other crypto are not legal tender. And they're not legal tender because of high cybersecurity risks. And they, of course, are highly volatile as well. There is also work being done on developing digital currency from the central bank. And right now, it's more at a wholesale level, meaning central banks like South Africa, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, they've been working together in a project called Project Dunbar to develop the CBDCs. So that's something that we can look at going forward, inshallah. So coming to the end, what are the gaps and opportunities in Islamic fintech? Well, if you look at this snapshot of where Islamic fintech lie, you'll see that in the Middle East and North Africa, there are 38 solutions available for alternative financing. But when it comes to social finance, like Zakat, digital solutions, or Waqf, there's only one. When it comes to the payments gateways, you will find a significant number of payment gateways throughout the Middle East, even in Southeast Asia, in South and Central Asia. But when it comes to Sub-Saharan Africa, there are none. In terms of capital markets, the majority of the countries have not really developed their digital capital market side. And this is where you have digital sukuk and other solutions like robo-advisory. And there has been a limited development on those aspects as well. Other gaps include offering enabling technologies. So very limited enabling technologies as a base have actually been offered. And Takaful, once again, has been slow to develop as a sector in itself compared to Islamic banking. And Taka Tech, or Takaful technology, has also been quite slow, but there is significant opportunity now for development internationally. What's the way forward? Well, the way forward, we can say, should be a call for purposeful innovation. And how can this be achieved? Well, I've laid out a guiding principle. That guiding principle should be that there should not be a choice between faith and technology. It should be rather a purposeful integration between the two. Technology must be the means to achieve the objectives of the Sharia, especially in areas where we have a large amount of financial exclusion. In order to achieve the objectives, the maqasid, the technology is not the end in itself. It's only an enabling platform. So for technologists, entrepreneurs, there is a huge gap and opportunity for you. You should be asking, how can we design systems that embed adl, fairness and justice, transparency in the design? And it's not just a compliance checkbox. An example would be, if you're offering BNPL, buy now, pay later, a screen should pop up and you should ask the user, are you aware of what you're getting into? And it should provide some literacy if the user is new to this. For scholars and Sharia boards, you should be asking the question, how do we evolve governance from being reactive to product approvals? If scholars are on the platform, you know how it works. The banker will provide you with a product for approval. And this is a reactive approach. But if we were using AI effectively and the technology more effectively, it could be more proactive. You design an ethical algorithm that will already screen your product and provide you with guidance on how to enhance it before even going to the Sharia board level. Of course, using algorithmic auditing is something that we have introduced in a small scale with some of the institutions that we supervise, but this needs further development and a significant opportunity. If you are an investor or a policymaker, then you should be asking, how can we create an ecosystem that funds, that incentivizes ventures, that prioritize long-term social impact? And this should be alongside the commercial profit-based initiatives. The ultimate goal, it's a collective task. It's all of us that should be building a global digital economy where the most valuable, enduring currency is nothing other than trust. So in summary, there is a significant amount of work that needs to be done in Sharia compliance. There's more effort that needs to be done on the maqasid perspective, and access to debt right now is tap ready. We need to move away from that. We need to look at constant behavioral marketing that's nudging us into more consumerism and materialism, and try to limit that and put a stop to that and look at more purposeful purchases that are really adding value for the long term, not short-term impulse buys. Financial inclusion is not materially impacted yet, which means that what's the real gap here? It's not the technology. The gap is literacy, and literacy remains low. Even a country like Indonesia that is so successful in Islamic fintech solutions has a huge awareness gap when it comes to Islamic finance concepts and finance in general. And the last of which is what we talked about, data privacy. Today, we live in a conflict-ridden world, and that is because there is significant self-interest. And when we look at situations where we are frustrated in our inability to provide any meaningful action, like the suffering and oppression and the murder and the genocide that takes place in Gaza, then we realize that there are nefarious groups out there that will be looking at the destruction of other sects, other sectors, other communities, other groups for whatever reason, ultimately a self-interest reason. And here, Muslims as a community are also now exposed to these behavioral tendencies and risk. And since data is traded as a commodity today, the data of behavior of a Muslim, in fact, the data and behavior of every human is now well recorded and traded. And if we are not looking at protection of our own data, and we don't understand what we're putting out there every time we tap or every time we read the news or social media, then that is a huge, huge risk. And at this point, I would tell you that the number one risk, according to the World Economic Forum, the number one risk facing humanity today is not climate change. It is misinformation and fake news. It's the scams that we face. And this is all expanded exponentially through technology. So this is something that we need to arm ourselves with, and that's literacy of what's going on, how to distinguish between the fake and the truth, and be able to take informed decisions as we move into this new world that's AI augmented, and certainly something that can really grow us, empower us, but at the same time, it holds huge risks as well. I thank you for your time and your patience. Please, if you have any questions, you are most welcome to pose them. I don't attempt to know all of the answers, but we will try to answer them, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, wa ma alayna illa al-balagh.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Ziyaad, for that very engaging and insightful presentation. I always enjoy your presentations. When you mentioned about how the normal question that come up with when it comes to fintech is always things like, is blockchain or cryptocurrency halal? It always reminds me of when social media came out, and all the people are generally asking the scholars, is social media like Facebook and all that, is that permissible? And then when Twitter blew up back in 2009, I remember the same thing, people asking the same thing, is it halal? And then when Snapchat became a trend, became a thing for a bit, people asking the same thing. And now with AI and with fintech and with the financial platforms that you mentioned, are they permissible? People are still asking that question, and the answer has always been the same, just similar to what you just said. One sheikh was asked, is the use of not just social media, but also Google, or at that time Google has its own platform, I forgot what it's called already. Is that permissible? And the sheikh said it's very simple. Just because you have a knife doesn't mean you have to stab someone with it. You can use it to in the food making process to make something good, something beneficial to benefit everyone. So it's again back to the same principle of it's just a platform. It's also how you use it. There's great potential in harm, but there's also a great potential in doing good as well. Thank you very much once again, Prof. Now I would like to open the floor for questions first from our panelists. So if there's any questions from our panelists today, Prof. Azman or Prof. Nur Azmalail, if you have any questions, please do unmute yourself and then ask away.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Prof Azman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ziyaad, for your very interesting presentation. I'm driving, but I enjoy listening to your talk. I have I observe that recently, for example, in the market, we rely so much on this technology, this AI, but we have some issues. I think you already mentioned just now when it comes to buy now, pay later, for example, there must be a mechanism, for example, to get the consent and approval from the customers, for example, when they want to enter into a... I noticed, for example, when take one example, gold saving accounts, because the price of gold now is going up. So many people are interested to buy gold. And I think many of the Islamic banks in Malaysia are offering this product, gold saving account. In the beginning, for example, Rajihi, for example, they have a physical gold. It's not an account, but you buy gold and then you can ask the bank to keep the gold for you. But now, many banks are offering, they have physical gold, they keep in their storage. But the thing is, most of the Shariah committee, for example, when they decide for the approval of the product, the conditions that, for example, there must be, the system, the IT must capture the amount of gold that they keep in the storage, and so that we know exactly how much can be traded. But I try to open to buy gold through these accounts. For example, we have, I try to see, for example, how they reflect the availability of the gold, but they make it very general. I mean, there is no such details for the customers. My concern is, I'm afraid that sometimes, I think Dr. Ziyaad mentioned just now, we are afraid that this fictitiousness could happen because we want to facilitate, the transaction. At the end of the day, we are trading only based on the index. It's not the real gold which is in existence. So this is the challenge, because we don't know the limits, and we don't know, for example, whether there is a proper tagging. Of course, from the, when they present the proposal to the Sharia committee for approval, they have everything. But to operationalize the product, how far this is reliable? So there is a challenge for that. To avoid the fictitiousness, because among the conditions, a very important conditions for gold trading is it must be in existence, must be available, must be deliverable, and the payment must be paid the soonest. During the takabut, there must be a takabut. The exchange must be done on the spot. There is one observation. Another observation, for the renewal of the FD, fixed deposit, for example, normally there is for a certain period of time. If you make an FD with us, we're going to give you, for example, 4% of the profits, of course, using commodity murabaha, tabaru. But when it comes to renewal, the bank will do it based on the available, based on the rates of that time of the renewal. But the challenge is how this is communicated with the customer, with the depositor, because there must be actually a proper conclusion of the contract, commodity, because the selling price, the new selling price, for example, the rates, sometimes, because now, for example, the rate is very low, 2.4, 2.2. Sometimes the thing is, there definitely is different rate. But I just wondering how, for example, how it is concluded, whether they state in the in the form that the renewal will be based on the prevailing profit rate. But the thing is there any confirmation of the transaction of the commodity murabaha? Is there any yeah, this is also a challenge. We're afraid that there is a sort of fictitiousness which we should avoid. There is no real commodity transaction. Jazakumullah khairan, Dr. Ziyaad. Barakallah fikum.
Allah yabarak feek. Yeah, Jazakumullah khair, Ustaz. So yeah, I mean, these are valid observations. I'll simply say that a good example is when we look at oil-backed or gold-backed tokens. So if I use the gold example that you mentioned in the first observation, the challenge here is that originally, and we've been presented with some of these fintechs and, for analysis and compliance, and we find that many of them suffer from the same challenge. So what they do is they have a token that represents the underlying gold, as you've mentioned, and then they buy and sell the tokens. Now, initially, the token value is tied directly to the gold value. But eventually, what happens is that the token takes on a life of its own and now begins being traded using supply and demand, and it now establishes a price. So there's a price discovery that takes place on the token itself. Now, what are you actually buying and selling? Because it has no underlying anymore. There's no representation. So that is another issue that has to be dealt with. And especially from the Islamic perspective, we do need to have the real assets backing it. And this goes the same for your observation too, when the commodity murabaha must be carefully audited to ensure that the sequence of events is fulfilled, and we can identify at every stage that the transaction of purchase, the transaction of sell-off, and the action of agency have all been carefully demonstrated through the blockchain. So this can be done if you use the technology carefully. But I mean, valid observations, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think now we'll open the floor for the questions from our audience. We've got quite a few, alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. For those who are raising their hands, we would appreciate it if you can just fill in the questions in the Q&A. Okay, Dr. Ziyaad, you would like to answer the first question. Would the data be compromised even with paid AI tools, like paid subscriptions on ChatGPT or cloud?
This is often, and the reason I want to answer this quickly is because it's a common misconception that because I have a paid subscription, everything that I do is private and protected. It is not. Please. And in fact, the AI tools are now programmed to identify those questioners that are questioning with doing something harmful, and they have inbuilt reporting mechanisms. So if you are trying to just play out fantasies in your AI and you think that you are safe because it's paid, then I would tell you to be seriously careful, because it doesn't work like that. Now, even in a ChatGPT scenario where you can click the temporary chat, you will see that the little pop-up tells you that even though they are not storing or using your information for training purposes, they are storing your chat for 30 days. And in fact, the reality is that the overall privacy of utilizing these AIs has never been tested in detail. What we do know is that when there is a crime that's committed, then the AI company can easily go back to your chats and see what you have been thinking over time and use that as evidence in court. So these are real issues. That's for real harmful issues. But I'm obviously going to be, applying husnul dhan and saying you're not going down that road. But talking about any other private information, maybe your bank details or maybe your personal information, the AIs have been trained to respond in a particular manner. They've been trained on aspects of psychology and NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, and therefore they can respond to you in a very human way. And suddenly you feel like you've been listened to. You feel like you've been seen. And when that happens, the barrier between human and technology is dissolved. And when that takes place, there is this hyper reality creation where we are now envisioning this AI that's really our friend. And I'm sure you've read some of the horror stories of these AI girlfriends and this AI, guiding people to do crazy things and egging them on and saying, yes, your ideas are good and they're going to change the world and they're going to make you a billionaire. So you need to really understand what you're getting into. And I would urge everyone to go through literacy programs on AI before they are involved with AI or utilizing AI any further.
Thank you. Speaking about literacy, we had a question on how do you address the generational gap when it comes to literacy with fintech or Islamic fintech or AI in general?
This is an interesting one because although we may think that we have a generational gap because it's expected, that generational gap is not that huge. Because for the first time, our seniors, our elderly now have someone to talk to. They have someone to ask for advice. And they are, taking it like a duck to water. It's become so easy for them to interact now. Instead of waiting for children that never call or children that never visit, and they need some help, with some technology issue or a gardening issue or whatever it may be, they can immediately tap into their AI, which is mobile ready. So you would be really surprised. That generational gap is not as significant as we think it is. And the more people that we are interacting with, who are our teachers and our seniors, we realize that they are grabbing AI and utilizing it quite successfully in the way there is. But there are, the biggest challenge is the issue of scamming and the big issue of the reality being blurred. And this takes place for young and old. Both are susceptible. And therefore, the literacy issue arises once again.
Okay, let's take another question. Every human-made technology persisted loophole. If majority adopted the fintech, obviously fintech-based scams and other uncertainty will increase, which is true. This will lead to community collapse with losing credibility in these systems. How can we address this in the Maqasid Sharia perspective?
So I mentioned this in the talk. I said that the Maqasid are basically the guidelines, the objectives, the parameters for what we need to do. Preservation of wealth, looking after our lives, looking after our lineage, looking after what we're thinking about and how we express ourselves. This is all Maqasid. So those parameters are initially put there by our regulators, but they also need to be put there by ourselves. So I come back to the issue of literacy. If you want to use the Maqasid and apply them successfully, you need to be literate on what's available and how you can use the technology safely. That is how we apply the Maqasid in our own individual lives.
Excellent. Next question is, okay, Islamic fintech has wide opportunities in India, but for those who want to have positive impact to the community through Islamic fintech, RBI and SEBI and other country regulatory and legal challenges persist. How can we address it?
Sheikh Sahlur Rahman, wherever there is a will, there is a way, as they say. And fintech offers that avenue of doing it in a safe way. And if it is not regulated, because fintech may not be regulated if it is not a deposit institution, if it's providing certain types of solutions. So because fintech can be broken up into little micro solutions, unlike a bank that offers so many solutions that needs to be licensed, you may find that your fintech solution may not have to be regulated at all. But always, apply the legal test, the regulatory test to make sure you are in line. And again, I think still a lot of work needs to be done, especially in countries like India, where it is challenging to apply Islamic finance. Fintech solutions may be the way to come around this. I'm not offering you a clear solution yet, I know, but for now, this is the best that we can do.
Excellent. Okay, as of today, how much how reliable is the AI in terms of Sharia perspective?
Great question. So, we have a little experiment that we've started about a year and a half ago with AI, with one of my master's students, and we've done extensive testing on the AI models. We've bombarded it with a variety of questions to determine the legitimacy of its Sharia responses and whether it can hold up a Sharia conversation. And we find that although there is a significant amount of training and evolution that's taking place, there are significant gaps. And those significant gaps lie primarily in being able to identify something impermissible in an embedded transaction, for example. So that's where it really falls down. None of the AIs have successfully been able to do that. Now, what we are doing at INCEIF is looking at how we can protect ourselves by asking the right questions, because AI is all about prompting. And if you understand how to prompt and what the response means and how to dissect the response, then you will know how to interrogate the AI until you are actually receiving a question, an answer response that is something that is beneficial to you. Now, it's obvious that if you do not have conversational understanding of the Sharia, of the fiqh, of the usul, getting into an AI and asking it a question like, is it permissible for me to eat duck? Then you must be aware that the AI may provide you with a response that you can influence. You understand what I just said? You can influence the response that the AI is provided. We've done this, we've tested it, we've convinced the AI to give us an answer that has converted something from totally haram to totally halal. And we provided, scenarios for it to understand, if we want to use that word loosely, what challenges we are facing, and suddenly it changes it into from haram to halal. So you must be, be well aware that the AI can be manipulated, and therefore you need to be conversant on what you are asking before you are asking it.
Excellent. We hope an article or publication can be made available on this study soon, inshallah. Okay, LLMs, next question from Mr. Azim Mithani. LLMs will crucial but need to be trained. Do you see enough being done to ensure that we have LLMs that are accurate in relation to Sharia and Islamic finance practices? What are some offerings such as Noor AI, but we have some offerings such as Noor AI, but we need more.
Exactly. I mean, it stems from my earlier response as well. So yes, there is a lot of effort being made in establishing AIs that provide us with responses that are so-called accurate, but unfortunately, we're not there yet. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. If you're on a paid subscription of certain models, you stand a better chance because you have access to a larger and quicker model and deeper thinking. But the free models are at this stage pretty risky, and I would not trust them, and I would verify everything, and I would have some strong knowledge before I attempt to ask a question. So still a lot of work to be done on the LLMs, understanding that those that are currently training LLMs are coming in with biases, with views that may really cause harm to those that are in the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So there's a whole lot of peril that we are looking at. So exercise caution, but utilize it for good benefit.
Excellent. I think that answers another question as well on the big scale AI tools available. In the interest of time, I'll take another perhaps 2 questions. And then we'll end it from there. We do apologize to the viewers who sent in quite a number of questions, but in the interest of time, we'll go through the last 2 questions. What is the current Sharia issues related to smart contracts?
So the issue is what you program the smart contract to do, it will do. And
Right.
therefore, if you have not programmed it correctly, then it will do things that will obviously be impermissible. Now, that's the one aspect on the programming. But the other aspect is that if we leave a smart contract to complete its cycle without any human intervention, then the safety and the sanctity of that transaction is protected. Why? Because we've told it exactly what to do, we've tested it, we've secured the pipeline, and we know that what it's going to do from A to Z is what we are approving in advance. However, the ability for smart contracts to be without any human intervention is limited, because there are many nuances and details that we have to add during the process. And as soon as there is human intervention, there is potential for Sharia issues to arise. So it's just the normal kind of transaction. If you program it correctly and you leave it alone, generally it will be safe. If you program it correctly and you tend to intervene at different stages, well, then you are exposing it to risk. But if you don't intervene, you are exposing it to inaccuracy. So yeah, you need to look at this type of transaction carefully.
Thank you. And the last question would be, apart from formal school education, what are the most effective ways to enhance financial literacy amongst individuals and especially women?
Well, school education is evolving rapidly. My niece has not attended a physical class in her first 4 years of school, and everything has been done online. And she uses AI models to be able to assist her and guide her, because she's gone through a basic lesson of how to use it. And all of this is in parallel to the school syllabus, which means that if you really want to learn about the use of AI and dealing with fintech today, it's not going to be in the school education or school curriculum. So it's really open out there. You can look at programs coming out of Coursera, out of FutureLearn, or out of LinkedIn if you're connected. There are tons of free courses out there on how to deal with AI, how to deal with fintech. The world is your oyster like it's never been before. There are no excuses to become more literate in this field.
Excellent. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Dr. Ziyaad, for that very interactive session. As I always say, one way for, at least for me, to judge whether a session is good or not is by the number of questions that we got. And by the number of questions that we had today, alhamdulillah, was very, very engaging. I do apologize once again. We're going to address all the questions, but if I can have Dr. Ziyaad's permission, if I can compile the questions, the unanswered questions, and I'll send it to you, and just answer it by text, and then I will email every one of our attendees. Will that be okay?
No problem.
All right. Before closing, any final word of advice, Dr. Ziyaad?
Well, I think that we've said it all. The issue of literacy is primary. The issue of responsibility is crucial. And I think that we should enter this field with a level of taqwa and, the piety or God-fearing, as it's described, because only through that and with that all together wrapped up is how we will achieve excellence in this field, and being able to navigate as a consumer, as an investor, as an academic, as a banker. We must couple all of these things together, amalgamate them. If you want to talk about augmented AI, then we need to be a thoroughly augmented human being, where we have integrated all these behavioral characteristics of justice, fairness, and piety, and the recognition of Allah Azza wa Jal in all that we do. So this is my final message. May Allah guide us all.
Ameen, Jazakallah khair once again, Professor Dr. Ziyaad, for that very engaging and interactive session on Islamic fintech and where we are today. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. We have come to the end of our monthly Sharia webinar series, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the next monthly Sharia webinar series in the last week of October. We will confirm the exact date soon enough, inshallah. So with that, my name is Izzuddin. It's been my pleasure to be your MC and moderator. As always, see you in the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and have a great day.
Jazakumullah khairan.
Salam.